everyone, and welcome to the LMF Life Skills Summit. We are excited to have you join us. So please connect, share your thoughts and questions in the comments, and get ready to get advice from our incredible guest speakers. So, as a brief kind of introduction, LMF Network is on a mission to level up the confidence and careers of women and professionals globally. The goal is to build the confidence and careers of 25,000 women by 2025, which is a very kind of impressive and ambitious goal. But we have established UK's largest mentoring program, an amazing hub of masterclasses, a well-established network of individuals wanting to level up, and most excitingly, we have a new product that we're going to launch this year, which may change the world. So that is why we are hosting this summit filled with insights, tips, and advice from professionals across industries and roles to level up your career. And without further ado, let's get started with our Are You Born with Creativity panel. But before that, I want to make introductions. So let's start with Aggie Dimarska, is a marketing consultant at Branderby with a passion for creating and launching and managing lucrative websites. Aggie is committed to sharing her knowledge and insights with the world. And this year, she has actually authored The Website Is Not Enough ebook, a comprehensive guide spanning 93 pages, which outlines her time-tested system for building, launching, and running profitable service-based businesses. So, on to Harpreet Dulai. She is the global GTM Salesforce customer-centric lead at VAS, and she's a digital transformation expert and business strategy developer with a bachelor's in computer forensics and security, which she was just telling us about a little bit behind the scenes. And her current role is, as a global go-to-market Salesforce customer-centric lead. Having kind of navigated the tech industry for over a decade, now her passion and motivation stem from bringing awareness to diversity and inclusion challenges. And finally, we get to Susan Bailey. She is a digital product analyst at Close Brothers. In May 2022, Susan was selected from over 800 applicants to complete a sponsored full stack Code Girls First degree. She's also an experienced project manager, skilled at managing high value projects and bringing teams together to deliver projects on time and budget. And she is also kind of studying on her product design and management certifications to grow her UX and product skills. Now that introductions have been made, here is a question for all the panelists. So creativity is usually associated with art, music, and crafts. However, it can be a valuable skill for our careers. How would you define creative thinking? And when was that kind of first moment of like, maybe I am a creative person? And let's start with Susan.
Well, hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me on today. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think being creative is interesting. I'm really fortunate in that I've always known I was creative. I was always sketching, writing, making things, sewing, stitching, that kind of thing. In fact, when I was 9, it's quite precocious. I wrote a novel on my typewriter.
I love that.
Nice. Because you might not know, there's a novel called Watership Down, which is about rabbits. And, who doesn't like rabbits when you're 9? But I'm afraid it's a little bit depressing. So I decided it needed a rewrite, make it a little bit more upbeat. So that's what I did. And I think that, and I think that's where, the whole creative aspect becomes interesting because I think people think that it, like I say, it's associated with, painting or art, but actually it can be an act of reimagining something. It can be an act of, if you can see an idea or a concept, is how could that apply elsewhere? It doesn't always have to be starting off with the blank page. And I think if you can imagine something being done differently, or can picture something being done differently, and applying that, one concept to another. I really do think that is, creative thought. It's a creative thought process.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's about how you think rather than what you do. And with that, like, Aggie, what are your thoughts on that question? What is creative thinking?
Well, I would certainly agree that initially what comes to mind is, maybe some artistry, you like to paint, you like to draw, but just like Susan said, the skill is transferable. And, I was always told I was creative. I kind of always knew, but it was kept in the realm of, she can paint, she's going to be an artist. Later on, when I entered the job market, it was actually portrayed as a hindrance. I think it wasn't welcomed as much as I would like it to be. I think the idea was that I'm told what to do and I shall follow. And that really did not sit well with me. Luckily, I did find an employer who was a little different, and the role was a UX designer. So I think, I could use my creativity just to do an everyday job, but also to join hackathons and collaborate with other team members. It was really, a place where I had that aha moment where I felt I am creative, but not only in a way that I can design, I can also transfer those skills and perhaps come up with my own business idea, or perhaps with, solutions to problems that are creative. And this is actually usually reserved for men rather than females, I think. That's how people maybe perceive creativity, that females are more artists and creative, like hands-on creatives, whereas men are there to kind of come up with innovation ideas, and even within science. I think that is changing. I'd like it to change, and I don't know if Harpreet, would you agree that it's a transferable skill? What was your journey?
Yeah, no, I agree with both of your points. I would define it down as introducing an idea, or even piggybacking off an idea. Like you said, Susan, it doesn't have to start from scratch. It's about being innovative, about having breakthroughs. I mean, I would also say the word creative, aside from it being in the realm of art and craft, and music and all that good stuff, I would say it would be more around being curious, exploring, thinking outside the box, and actually being vulnerable, because you're putting ideas out there which other people may not agree with. And you're almost having to, I don't know, stand your ground, or having to explain, justify almost why those ideas you think are great or they would work. But I think there's another part to it that people don't necessarily think about or even talk about, is the fear of being creative.
Absolutely. It takes courage, right?
Exactly, because with being creative, obviously with the vulnerability, there could be worries about judgment. You could be ridiculed, you could be laughed at, belittled, and there's a fear of failure, there's a fear of being wrong. So it does take a different type of courage to just put yourself out there.
Harpreet, that's so true. That's one of the main messages I wanted to deliver today, actually, is to say that resilience is such such an important part of creativity, because hit it the nail exactly on the head. If you're revealing an idea that nobody else around the table has had, you very well, you've got to get ready to get shot down, because people might not have the same imagination or the same capability to picture things done differently in the same way that you do. So having the resilience to actually become a cheerleader for your own ideas as well.
Exactly.
Is completely
it's true. I think I believe that children are the most creative, and the reason for that is because they don't really care. They are happy to stumble, hurt their knees, get up and carry on and do it again, learn, evolve, adapt. And as parents, as guardians, we encourage that. But then as soon as they get out there in the world of education, in the world of society, that kind of instills that failure, that burden, that it's wrong, when actually it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have touched on so many kind of topics that we're actually gonna talk throughout the summit, which is curiosity, lifelong learning, fear of failure, and just like how you embrace failure as actually something to embrace rather than run away from. But absolutely, and you also kind of touch in how even like creativity is perceived between kind of like women and men, which is like kind of some stereotypes and biases that we also as LMF Network we try to kind of move away from and say like like women, it's not about usually like when because you're women, you're gonna get in charge of the creative projects or like the design side of things because you're a woman, and actually as you have all said, it's like it's more about like how you think and kind of finding new ways and being innovative and just like coming up with new solutions. So it's just really like interesting when how you kind of think of that experience, but and kind of going into that kind of like stereotyping or preconceived ideas that we have. So Aggie, you're a marketing consultant, and creativity must be one of the main skills that you use, not only in terms of designing websites, but also how you think about your kind of clients' projects. What has been your experience developing this skill? Have you always thought you were kind of creative person, or you think it was something that you kind of learned along the way?
Well, just as I mentioned before, since very young age, I enjoyed, drawing and painting, and then, I went to like an art school. So it was kind of obvious to everyone that I'm this artistic person. But again, when I entered the job market, it felt that all the skills that I was told I had, and they were so great, weren't really that useful. But one thing which I kept doing is I kept drawing, and I kept it, for that period of time, I would say as a hobby or side hustle, whatever they call it. And I think this is important because my belief is that everybody, just like Harpreet said, is born with creativity. It is being taken out of us through different stages of our lives. And I think the most important thing I would like to say to anyone who is watching is to keep doing it, whether you paid for it or not. It will become useful, and you can develop that skill. After years of not drawing, I went back to it, and I can see the progress I've made in last year. So, the actual skill of drawing has improved, and it also allows me to take that time for myself, recover a little bit from like the everyday jobs that I do, and it gives me that distance that is necessary for me to actually help my clients. Everybody who comes to me has got an idea which is unique for a business, and it's almost a creative project between the two of us to create that brand, explain to others what is on offer, and it goes obviously into creating designs and using Canva. And I would encourage everyone to try it themselves, even if they don't feel confident. There are tools nowadays that make it very easy for just anyone to create designs, to be creative, to come up with new different ways of doing things, without feeling that it's detrimental in any way. Failing, like Alex mentioned, is important as well. So even if you fail at drawing, I had to actually check the word create. It comes from Latin, and it's to make. It's not actually to make something pretty or be successful anyway. It's about making. So we are all creatives every day of our life. We need to maintain this creativity and stay aware that we are creative and be mindful of it. And I think that is the skill that we need to kind of develop, rather than work on making things pretty or doing something specific. Just be mindful that we are creatives and nurture this within us, and treat it maybe as a fun skill, something fun to do, rather than all those hard skills that we have to use in our work, you know, they maybe not as fun. I think creativity should be fun. It should be part of play, and that is the way to develop it as well.
I mean, yeah, you make an excellent point of, you know, creativity. So something that is kind of lifelong learning. It's not just like one thing that you have and then you kind of you never like look at it again, but you know, it involves certain kind of like curiosity and lifelong learning. And with that, you've had an interesting career journey, Susan. You've made a switch to tech after years of you know, working in the textile fashion industry. What motivated this change? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And how have you put creative thinking to your work in your career, particularly now that you've made this switch?
Well, what motivated me? So I've been really lucky. I have had a great career in fashion as well. I mean, I supplied cashmere to Marks and Spencer's for a huge account. We're in their top 10 suppliers. Traveled all over the Far East. You know, then I went on to launch a brand that stocked in Harvey Nichols as well, and you know, all that has been fantastic. It has been fantastic. But part of what drives you along that journey is intellectual curiosity, it's ambition, it's always striving to do something better. And you know, so during and I did become interested in tech around about 2017 because I started attending a night school, coding. And it just CSS and HTML, you know, just simple stuff, then moving on to JavaScript. And I found, and that was just curiosity, really. It was because I thought it was intriguing. And then during lockdown, I was made redundant, as a lot of people in the fashion industry were. And I decided to do a UX design course in the downtime. And I knew really at that point in time I should have just swapped into tech because I was offered another job in design and I was actually just disappointed I couldn't finish the UX design course. So so really for me, I think it was just a chance to do something new. And you know, if you'll all find this when you've been working a long time, there are actually jobs that, I mean, wait to see what happens with AI. There's like a whole wealth of jobs that are going to come into being that aren't even in existence yet. In like 10 years time, 15 years time, you don't want to be doing the same thing. So so for me, really, it was the opportunity to do something new and to utilize my skill set in a new industry. So the ability to see things through customers' eyes is a huge skill in UX design that I didn't realize is a superpower in tech. The ability to imagine.
I think it comes a bit more naturally to females, I would dare to say, and that's why so many of us do so well at UX and actually do find that connection between the product and the customer, and being, you know, able to focus on their needs. It's quite fascinating, that one.
To be able to say this isn't appropriate for me, but I can see how it'd be appropriate for another user. I've only been working in the tech industry a short time, and to be able to see that is such a huge advantage is fantastic, and a huge relief, obviously, changing industries. but yeah, you know, it's a chance to do something new. And the great thing about tech is that you're likely to have several different careers while you're working in tech, and that's the main attraction, honestly, for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, I think it also kind of like takes courage to, you know, kind of make such a different move, because even if, you know, like obviously there are some transferable skills or some things that, you know, you can kind of apply from your past roles, you know, also I think it's, you know, like where creative thinking comes along. It's like finding new solutions and just like finding new ways of doing things. And that's an amazing journey, Susan, because I mean, I don't know if if I've ever done any, or like I would feel like, oh, I'm just going to do like a 180 and change completely. It takes courage, you know.
It's
scary. I have sort of transitioned between different industries and very much male dominated, even real estate. It was a hard lesson, I have to say. You know, what goes behind the scenes, I think, is quite telling. And the creativity in me has helped me along the way, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I do think there is a lot of work we need to do in order to allow for that creativity in the workplace, and specifically, you know, to allow females to show their skill, and not attribute that creative, innovative thinking to men only. I think there is quite a lot of research that has been done around, you know, who's more creative, males or females. They are, of course, inconclusive. It all depends on the context of that research. But I think the general understanding of creativity is that men innovate and bring new, you know, Elon Musks of the world, whatnot. We need to change that, ladies, and I think it's on to us, really. And I'm so glad that you know, the like-minded network is, you know, facilitating panels like this, because this is very much what I think should be happening. And, you know, to all those listening or rewatching, I think, you know, it's also onto you, you know, how you manifest your own creativity, and how you are brave and, you know, find the courage to actually come up with ideas without feeling that you may be, you know, judged for it by your employer. I think employers do appreciate it. I don't know if they have the skill or systems in place to actually, you know, allow that creativity to flourish. I think that's maybe what it is for many of those.
Yeah, no, I agree, Aggie. And I think I didn't have such a drastic change in my career. It was a slight change from products, so Microsoft to Salesforce. So it was still tech-based, but it still takes that leap to say, okay, I don't particularly know much. I know the concept of database and the concept of servers and managed servers, but I don't really know specifics. And then again, it's putting yourself out there. So it's taking the mask off and putting yourself out there. And I think the biggest thing is just be kind to yourself when you're going through that transition, because you won't get, initially, you won't get it all. But with time and with more exposure and with the right support behind you, you will.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you kind of like talking about tech sector and male dominated industries. So as you mentioned, Harpreet, you have done kind of more of horizontal moves, but you know, working in tech is usually thought as a very kind of like highly technical, only coding oriented industry, where, you know, soft skills like creative thinking are not maybe really thought about or not prioritized enough. Has this been your experience? Is there room for creativity in tech? So just tell us a little bit of that.
I actually think it's more creative than people perceive it to be. It's a different kind of creativity, and obviously if it doesn't float your boat, then maybe not. But I mean, like, even for the world of projects, we are, from the very beginning, when we're talking to customers, we're starting out by working on projects by engaging with the customer, keeping them motivated, keeping them in the room, trying to find fun and innovative ways of walking through their day-to-day, trying to understand what kind of digital transformation they want to take. So that's all being personable, having those conversations either face-to-face or online. But then it also, behind the scenes, when we start to put pen to paper, that might be creating architectural diagrams, it might be creating business flows, trying to, again, conceptualize how the companies work, how the customers work, all through diagrams, process flows. Again, it's not artsy, but it's being creative. And when you're in workshops, we were talking about this earlier, Aggie, you're having to do workshops persona led. So you're profiling your customers, you're profiling your customers, you're trying to pinpoint everything and make sure you haven't missed a scenario or missed a criteria. So again, it's reaching to an extra layer of creativity within your mind. But I find the creativity is obviously, when I said earlier, it's about exploring, but it's also exploring within the technical limitations, the budget, the timelines, the environment, the security, and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't sound very sexy, but again, it does encompass the creative thinking and seeing like, okay, we only have X amount of time. We want to give the customer the best platform or the best product as possible, so they can go to market with it. And obviously we can evolve as we go along, but what can we do for them within what we've got?
Absolutely. I have to second that. Sorry to jump in, but because I work with people who often have limited budget, but they still have ambitious goals, the creativity comes in deciding how to spend that budget or where to allocate the resources. So absolutely, just like you said.
Yeah, exactly. But fundamentally, and I think, Aggie, this is something you mentioned earlier, I believe it's often something that forms great leadership, that creativity. Because leaders are anyone that holds themselves accountable to finding potential in people, potential in processes. It's not to do with titles or status. It's leading the way. And I think if you're a leader in your own right, you allow people to show their personality and their workings, to give them confidence, to be creative, and to not show that judgment and stopping them at the very start of it. I think it's also just allowing them the space to raise ideas and to be vulnerable, and respect them, because yes, you might have the upper hand and authority just because of the hierarchy, but that doesn't mean they're not also people. So it's also respecting everybody's ideas, respecting everybody's intelligence, knowledge, and just having a round table.
It would be great to, maybe for everyone who is watching or will be watching later on, to kind of add a little comment on how they feel about it, whether they feel that their creativity is being appreciated. It'd be really interesting for, for myself even to see how others feel about it, because, I did feel that pressure to not be creative in some environments. And then when I found the right place for myself, the right role, it felt like, oh, this is an advantage, and I did the right thing developing those skills. So I would love to hear from everyone about their own experience, how it worked for them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And how about you, Susan? Like, what do you think about, kind of like what we've said, particularly, kind of as you also work in tech, or very kind of like tech oriented role? How about creativity in the tech sector?
Well, I was just listening to what was saying, Harpreet, about creating a safe space for ideas to flourish, and that's so important. I think at the moment, I feel like there's more space and more safe spaces in tech than there is even in fashion, actually. I think there's more egos. Well, it can't be a surprise, there's more egos in fashion. Whereas kind of everybody wants to, have a hand on the success, or, sort of flag up that they've been the originator of something. One of my favourite sayings is, a good idea has lots of parents, and a bad idea is an orphan.
Very true.
But I do think that so far I've experienced the tech industry, there is a safer space for people to sort of put forward ideas, and everybody is thinking to be heard and listened to, and time is taken to make sure that space is created as well. So I think that's sort of really important. I'd be interested to find out what you think about. I was thinking about being analytical and creative, because the two aren't mutually exclusive at all. In fact, that's what I know was missing from my previous careers, that my analytical side wasn't exercised enough, which is the attraction of moving over into tech. So do you think that there's negativity about creativity, or people aren't really appreciative of the fact you can be both analytical and creative?
I think it takes almost a bit of both to do both. Like when you're analyzing something, it's not just black and white. So you have to think outside the box. You have to think about every scenario. And then on top of that, it's almost like Inception, because then you're like, okay, there's another thing, and then there's another thing, and then you uncover another thing. So I think they work in hand.
Absolutely. And I think, creativity is misunderstood or misportrayed. It's not drawing pretty things. However, even in UX, I'm sure all the UXers will agree, there's many different ways one could draw an wireframe. So, to do it by hand, is an amazing skill. And I would dare to say that those designers who do it by hand are, recognized for it. So it's starting to change, I think. And, creativity to develop it, if you feel that you're lacking, because maybe people out there feel they're lacking that creativity. I think it can be developed, and it's just a matter of developing a habit of being creative.
That's it. It's a learned skill.
It's a skill you can develop. And, finding, I don't know, an hour a week, as little as that, to do something that you consider creative. And for me, that could be even sitting down and meditating. It's a process which allows you to come up with ideas in your head. It's just so important, and I always speak of this because it has made a huge difference in my life. I tend to read a lot of books about self-growth and businessy books, and then every now and then I try to read a book which is a little bit less heavy. It doesn't feel like I'm working still. And I can recommend, the Energized book by Alexander Ong. I actually brought a copy so that you guys can see the cover. It's easy to find online. Brilliant guy, and he speaks of importance of recovery and taking time to kind of, give yourself time to be creative and be in a zone and be in a flow, rather than just rushing to achieve things all the time.
Yes, I think just on that point, Aggie, there's a saying, isn't there, that resting is productive.
Because it's thinking time. It's thinking time, isn't it? Yeah, just staring into space and thinking, and allow thoughts to come to you.
And not rushing around and having to check off your list.
Absolutely. It's always about having something done, right? Where the process itself is creative and is beneficial.
Yeah, I agree. I think one last point just around creativity from me is, I think the biggest threat to it is disengagement. And again, this comes down to not having much energy, not being or not liking, say, for instance, the working environment, not having the respect or the safe space. Because in that, it looks like you're not showing up as your best self. You're not contributing how you probably could contribute. And you kind of stop caring altogether.
Yeah. I mean, you actually took out even kind of like my kind of final question, because we have like 5 minutes left. So I want to kind of like give opportunity if there's any questions on the comments, or from like the people that are watching us, but also just kind of for us to have like final thoughts, or even like final kind of like kind of strategies, top advice. But you took out the words, it's like, are we born with creativity, or can we nurture our creative thinking? And in that way, like, what would be your top advice for professionals that are watching us and will be watching us in the future? Like, how you can actively nurture and enhance these creative skills? How can how can people unlock their potential, their creative potential? So who wants to start?
I can go first.
Okay, go, Harpreet.
Reach outside your comfort zone. That's where you start innovating, and that's where you start discovering yourself. There might be stuff in yourself that you've never known before. I think the hallmarks of creativity, again, I know I've touched upon it, but just be courageous. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. And also be kind at the fact that you most probably will fail at some stuff, especially if it's new stuff that you've never done before. Accept it. understand that's the learning process, but everyone's got to start somewhere.
Absolutely.
And I think I'm saying that because I'm also trying to tell myself that at the same time.
No, that's great. You know, sometimes
Self-therapy.
yeah, exactly. You know, these panels are also a bit
Yeah.
of a kind of reflection period for us to
Exactly.
even kind of like tap into those kind of like thoughts that we had, you know, like flying around or just like on the top of our head. And, you know, like sometimes just putting it out there is also a reminder for us that, you know, careers and our journeys are done, right? They're journeys that they don't stop at what point. We, you know, we're always learning. We're always kind of like finding new ways to grow as, you know, either professionally or personally. So Susan, what's your top advice for, you know, professionals?
Well, I was nodding away to Harpreet there comment. I think that was going to be my starting point, is just to exercise your intellectual curiosity. And that could be, don't define yourself by what you don't do. So, you know, you can expand your horizons. You could just decide to go for a bike ride, or maybe you can challenge yourself by making a public speech, or have a go at knitting, or any of these things, you know, just to try and help perceive yourself differently, I think is really helpful. And then that will enable you to not get locked in. A lot of people are very going to be very down on themselves, say, I'm not creative. Well, as we're established, we're all creative in some way. So try and perceive yourself differently and think of yourself differently as well. And then you'll find other opportunities open up to you. And that's, you know, opportunities, experiences, and abilities, and activities as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know what you say about kind of self-imposed limitations, right? Like I think, you know, we tend to think, oh, because I'm not working in a creative industry, I cannot be creative, or, you know, because my role doesn't have creativity or creative in the job title, I cannot be that. So, you know, sometimes it's just overcoming these kind of self-imposed limitations and tap into our full creative potential. So Aggie, what would be your kind of like,
I mean, it'll be hard to top what Susan and Harpreet already said. I think recognize your own creativity and really appreciate it for the gift that it is, because anybody can learn a skill, which is the hard skill. You know, you go to a course, you learn it, but creativity needs to be developed. And, you know, I do like to give a hands-on advice. So I think, you know, reading this book, this is hot right now, everybody's reading it. Develop a habit of being creative. You know, find time for yourself to be creative, and it may not yield results, you know, tangible results immediately, but eventually you will find that you find it easier to find solutions to problems. You are less stressed about it. You don't see yourself boxed into, you know, this cannot be done. Just try to recognize that you are creative. It may take a little time for you to find the way you express it, but everybody has got it, and be courageous about it. Just like Harpreet said before, don't be scared to come up with ideas and challenge the status quo, because this is how amazing things happen. You know, this is how we innovate and we get better at things.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, kind of what that kind of like last point that you put in terms of building the habit and kind of like just like sometimes doing it. Laura, she has kind of shared in the comments that she says, I think creativity requires engaging your brain and stretching it. Are people too overloaded to take this on? What do you think?
I think this is the problem. I think this is the
Yeah.
problem. And in the workplace, there must be push for allowing time to be creative. And I think, you know, the big ones, the Googles of the world, they do have these sleeping pods, even, I think, in the offices. They do try to make it interactive for people, so they do have the, you know, the opportunity to be creative. And I think we have to learn from the successful companies out there. If they're doing it, there's something in it, right?
Yeah. Exactly. And I think, again, rest is important so you don't become overloaded. Boundaries, so you don't allow yourself to be overloaded with too much workload than you can take on. And I think investing that time and knowing that actually I want to carve out 20% of my time to upskill something on something that would be appreciated in the workplace, for instance. So it's setting your own standards as well, I think.
Yeah, take it seriously. Take that skill of creativity as a serious skill that one needs to work on, just like any other skill, learning Excel spreadsheets, whatever it may be. You know, my goal this month would be to do something creative. It's a worthy goal.
Yeah.
That's very true. There's one thing I'd add as well, about if you've got a problem to solve, go for a walk. Go for a walk and think about it. Yeah, because you'll find that it's actually proven that it activates other parts of your brain that aren't activated when you're static. So yeah, if you've got the same as everyone else is saying is that exactly, get moving, get active, and then you'll find that your creativity starts to flow anyway. Actually.
Yeah, I mean that's just great advice. You know, like. Yes, I think it particularly sometimes with like how hectic life can be, you can get very kind of like overloaded and you know, try to do everything. But, you know, these are kind of great advice on how to kind of get your creative juices flowing and unlock your
and you know, collaborating, meeting with people, speaking with people, because you can bounce ideas of each other, and they may recognize your creativity in a different way that you would recognize it or not recognize it. So, you know, collaboration, fun, you know, meeting on brunches, lunches, you know, having just an opportunity to not be just, you know, overwhelmed with work and, you know, reaching the KPIs or whatever it may be that you told you have to do.
Exactly. And with these final thoughts, we end our Are You Born with Creativity panel. Thank you so much, Susan, Aggie, and Harpreet for your time, valuable advice, and insights. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Remember to get back online for the next panel. Are you an analytical thinker? Which, you know, now that you have done the creative one, you can go and see how, you know, creativity and analytical skills come together, and that is tomorrow at 12 p.m. UK time, and you'll see more brilliant speakers. Also, don't forget to follow us, you know, on socials to build your career and confidence. And, you know, for everyone listening and watching, we want to give you access to our new product for free, including our speakers. So before we launch it to the market. So if you're interested, sign up using the form the team has shared in the comments, and we'll be in touch. And see you soon. And thank you so much again, and have a great day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Great job, guys. Thanks.
Bye.